guys, it's TRT77 and this time around I have got my ISL Season 6 draft analysis. This is technically our comeback to draft leagues because I think this is like our first draft since February, since we drafted for UPA. And it's been a while, so I was definitely not like, I was definitely not my, how do I put this, in my at my free flowing best, if I could say that. But at the same time, we also weren't helped by the pick order. We did get the 8th pick out of 12, but it still is only 12 man per division. ISL has 3 divisions, Platinum, Diamond, and Pearl, and we are in the Platinum division. And there is some stiff competition in this division. But considering it's only 12 man, a lot of people got some pretty scary teams because, you know, the draft pool always becomes deeper with fewer players. So I'm just gonna jump right into it, guys. With my first pick, and we had pick 8 here, I picked up Mew. Now, Mew is a mon I've wanted to use forever because for one, the other thing I should mention here is also this is 10 mon, not 11 mon, like the usual draft leagues we do. I will leave a link to the doc in the description below, so y'all can see the rules of anything else and the tiers if you need to. Mew is a mon I've wanted to use for the longest time. It's one of the most versatile mons. The best and the worst thing about Mew is that it does get pretty much every move in the game, although it's not exactly like Smeargle sketch type deal, but it does get most of the moves in the game that you could ever need. But at least as far as I've seen or I've found, it's always best to have Mew on a team where it actually where it's never slotted into one role specifically. That way you have open sets, like for all its offensive sets, for all its utility sets. You basically make Mew your open book. But I've been wanting to use Mew forever, and getting it at pick 8, I'll definitely take it. Because at pick 8, the main thing for me is that you're not really going to get one of the premier megas. Although, I'll be honest with you, Mega Gallade was around at pick 8, but I just did not... no, actually no, Mega Gallade went the pick before me. I'm pretty sure. I kind of forget. But irrespective, I really wanted to use Mew, and so I took this opportunity to draft Mew. As you're going to see, the theme early on in this team is just going to be that I am trying to build a stable base for this team. It's not going to be as outright offensive as some of the other teams initially, but it works its way there. And actually, by the end of it, becomes, spoiler alert, more offensive than some of the other bulky offense teams I have drafted in the recent past. Next up, round 2. I think you might have heard of this mon at some stage from me. This is a mon that maybe I've used a few times. It's Tapu Fini. It's ironic, but this is like the third time I think out of 4 draft leagues in the last 8-9 months I've used Tapu Fini, and I just love this mon. This mon is such a comfort pick for me. This was not actually my first choice to go with Mew, to be fair to you, but also it was within my top 3 choices. I do think that I strongly considered this synergy from the very beginning, and that's why I really wanted Fini here, because Mew Fini is such a good core because, one, they both threaten very difficult to deal with setup. They both deal very well with balanced teams. They both deal quite well with offense teams, even though they do need a few more pieces in there to truly check offense teams. And and for bonds that actually have a lot of sheer natural bulk, they both actually fit into pretty good speed tiers. Because usually for me, I have a thing where I don't want to spend my tier 1s too much on mons that don't really contribute to my speed tiers. But 85 and 100 are pretty solid speed tiers for my tier 1 picks. And how ISL's tiers work are you have to pick a tier 1, tier 2, a tier 3, a tier 4, and a tier 5. Then you have a mega pick, and then you have 4 free picks. Basically, it's the same as 11 mon, except instead of 2 tier 3s, you get 1 tier 3 in the tier format. And basically, by virtue of going 2 tier 1s already, I am down to 220 on my free points out of 400. Normally, we would have 400 for those 4 picks. I am down to 220 already. So moving on, round 3. We got sniped a bunch in round 3, but I had to adjust on the fly and shift the team in a direction that I felt I was comfortable going. And the first thing for me was that I was not a fan of a lot of the steel types left on the board. I didn't want to double on Psychic, so that already knocked out Jirachi and Metagross. And I wasn't like most of the steel types I wanted to use were either too expensive or just not like I was just not I really didn't want to splurge in a steel type, sorry, that I would not be happy with. So round 3 I ended up going Klefki. Now, I truly believe Klefki is extremely underrated in the draft format. I shout out to Lambo and shout out to DTT because I feel like Lambo's made me like this mon a lot more than I did in the past. Uh, because of being forced to use it for that Oras team there, and just it not Oras team, sorry, for the for being forced to build with it for the other team, the Natdex team, if I recall. But I just feel like I overlooked this mon in the past, and I feel like this is such a good mon to have on this team. While here it doesn't have to really fulfill the fairy role, it really just functions as a spiking steel type. And the other thing I really like is obviously the prankster screens ability. And you're going to see as we go further and further in this draft, already we have Mew that loves screens and spikes. We have Feeny that loves screens and spikes. I think personally that as the further we go along, while Klefki is not always the best fairy resist in the game as a steel type, it's got pretty average bulk because that HP stat is not great. I do feel like it fulfills a role if we ever choose to go more offensive, but even against more defensive teams, Hazard stack is just beautiful, even as long as we have enough knockoff span to get rid of boots. And moving on to round 4, I really wanted a good dark type on this team. I wanted to prioritize having a good dark type. And for most of you that know me, know that I'm not a huge fan of Mandibuzz because I find it often becoming passive, even though it's a very good mon. For my playstyle, it often becomes a little bit too passive for me at times. So the mon I decided to go with is a mon that both Mew and Tapu Fini struggle with, and that is Zarude. Zarude was my 4th round pick. It's a tier 2 here, and also just to reiterate from before, Klefki is a tier 3. Zarude is a really good overall Pokemon and overall dark type. I think that, obviously, they have the 4x ground. Everyone's obviously going to talk about the bug weakness first, but it's got the natural bulk for it to not become a huge issue. And while it does become a little bit annoying if we start talking about mons like Landorus and stuff, which can U-turn quite frequently, I feel like the natural bulk already on this team, as we keep going, will carry through that matchup, and we will be able to figure ways through that. The other thing with Zarude is I just feel like it is extremely underrated in what it does. It is a pseudo status absorber in a way, even though we don't particularly need it with Misty Terrain. It's always an option. So it's a grass type that doesn't really often care about being scald burned. It's also just such a good switch into most setup psychics. Has one of the best Darkest Lariat hits in the game. And Power Whip hits like a truck. The fact that it can also work against other mons that we don't like too well. Like, we don't particularly enjoy stuff like Volcarona, which Scarf Zarude can revenge +1 Volcarona and it does get rock coverage, unlike Rillaboom. So there's your that's basically the reason for me going Zarude here. And moving on to a round 5 pick. Here I wanted to prioritize webs. Now Galvantula was a tier 4 here. In my opinion, tier 4 Galvantula is a steal. But then again, also not a lot of people other than me like using this mon. I truly enjoy using Galvantula. Even though the last time I used it, which was in BDL, I think when we brought it 2 games, I just felt like that BDL team was overwhelming. That was like an OP ass team. Like this, in general, like Galvantula didn't need to show up to as many games. And here I feel like I missed out on quite a few of the electrics I wanted. I just did not want to go Mega Manectric or something like that, and Mega Ampharos obviously makes no sense in Misty Terrain because I can't click my secondary stab easily. And I just did not feel like it was worth going there for an electric right now. And I'm not a huge fan of either like Heliolisk or Jolteon as much. So I just thought Galvantula, even though it's not a bird spam resist, but we will address that later on in this draft, Galvantula is such a good Pokemon. It's not ever going to to break a team or crack a matchup, but it's a reliable Weber. It's got two good stabs. It pivots around. It's got a really good speed tier that people don't usually talk about as much because they don't really expect Galvantula to run too many items. But Galvantula did have its day in the sun in Gen 6 when it still had HP fire. Although now, without access to that, it is a little bit more difficult to break certain steel types. I still think it's a very, very valuable Pokemon, especially considering what we're going to draft and how much webs and how much webs and screens especially together just help that so much. It also works out as another grass resist for me, which I can't, and it's not a which I can't fault, but and also it's not a ground weakness even though it's an electric type. Even though Galvantula really defensive utility wise, we're not often talking about it taking hits, even though I have run sets in the past that have been designed to take certain hits. I do think Galvantula plays it has a couple of roles on this team, and it's going to play those roles well. But I just felt the need to prioritize it here because it was at such a low tier. Moving up, our round 6 pick is Barraskewda. Now you're going to ask me why Barraskewda off Rain. Now our speed tiers are not bad at this point. We had Mew at 100, Feeny at 85, Zarude at 105, Klefki at 75, and we had last we had Galvantula at 108. So Barraskewda at 136 though. That speed tier is absolutely great for this team because for one, I just wanted to have somewhat of an oppressive speed tier mon to always screw with Scarfers around Mew and Feeny. And it's also nice to have a mon that can it getting access to flip turn. Obviously, being a Gen 8 mon, getting access to the flip turn, absolutely great for Barraskewda. It fits the overall theme of this team, though. That's the main thing. It revenge kills a lot of things that some of my other mons do not want to deal with. And even though it's out of rain here, I think it just works out as a very valuable revenge killer. There can be situations where it can be a breaker. I'm not super looking for it to do a whole lot of breaking, I think, because going forward, we do address the breaking issues. For me, it's more going to be the revenge killer cleaner type of position. But I say this, and again, I'm just going to contradict myself by the time the week 1 builder comes out. So let's just see how I use this. But I do feel like the speed tier is great to add to the team, especially considering the mons it outspeeds, the Cocos, the Megalops. Those speed tiers, those 130s, the base 130s being outsped by it is extremely useful for us. Moving on, our next pick is Nidoking. Now, I have no idea how in the hell we got Nidoking in round 7. Like, I have no idea. Like, I had a whole other plan, and then I was just like looking at the board and I was like, Jesus Christ, is Nidoking actually gonna make it back to me in round 7? In terms of instant special offense, we were a bit lacking to this point. And with sheer force, Nidoking is an absolute monster of a breaker. Now, usually I do like several of the Nidoking sets, but I've never really never put Nidoking in a position where it shines a whole lot because it's usually just a breaker on my teams. But here with both webs, spikes, screens, it's got a lot of potential in different 6s. It's got, and the other thing is it also shows up certain matchups that are not particularly great for my team. Even though Klefki and Nidoking are not particularly the best, Moonblast switch-ins, they do their jobs, and Nidoking has the added bonus of being extremely offensive in return. And I think that as an offensive ground, I don't think you can get much better than Nidoking, even though, at least on the special side. Moving on, we have our round 8 pick, which is our mega pick, which is Mega Heracross. Now, I went through a bunch of iterations of this team, and before you start screaming at me for double bug, it's not a TRT team if there's not double bug. Like, I'm sorry, that's just how it works. But Heracross, absolute monster of a breaker. The major thing that's a huge drawback, obviously, with Heracross is that god-awful speed tier that it's at, considering that it's got weaknesses to Fairy, Psychic, Flying, especially the 4x Flying weakness, which is tough. But the way I was building this team, the fact that I've got so many setup options with Mew, with Feeny, with Zarude, and then I was just like, you know what, there's even an option here for Heracross to be able to set up. And the problem is, not the problem, but the basic thing for me was, as soon as I went Nido King, I've got an instant offense in the special side. I needed instant offense in the physical side, and that's what Heracross is here to do. It gets the added bonus of having obviously access to web, spikes, screens, the same stick I've been saying for a while. We also do have two stealth rockers with Mew and Nido King, although I'm not sure either of them are particularly going to be running rocks very often. The other thing is also it doesn't share the rock weakness, which is huge. While there is a bit of a fire weakness being added on, I'm not too worried about it considering the picks we have, the picks we're going to add, and like when we functionally get to certain sixes, it actually doesn't affect us all that much. Moving on, our next pick, guys, is Stunfisk in round 9. Now you're probably wondering why I just doubled on ground and electric. Simple ass reason: rock resist, flying resist. Two jobs Stunfisk does really well. It also functions really well against certain fire types which threaten the team if they have dual stabs, and it also functions really well as a stealth rocker on the team. And it can honestly just static para things, discharge para things. It's got a fair enough special attack stat, decent coverage. And honestly, as a tier 5 pick, I don't think there was a whole lot of other value on the board that I would have liked on this team as much as Stunfisk. Because Stunfisk honestly has the capability here to show up to at least more than 4 games, which is something I would not say for a lot of tier 5s. And I do think that adding it was important considering how weak we were to bird spam before this. And the fact that it also, like, it doesn't get bopped by coverage, especially on the birds as much, is very important to me, unless we're talking like Pelipper or something, like obviously where the ball in the rain is going to hurt. But other than that, it's not particularly affected as much by stuff like Grass Knot and stuff, because it's a very light Pokemon. Overall, pretty solid pick. Added a Mon that I could just easily throw Stealth Rocks on if I needed to in any given 6. Cleared out a few more Mons, made my team a little bit less weak to something like Zeraora. Just took pressure off Zarude, took pressure off Klefki, which was important. Now moving on, our last round pick is Noctowl. Noctowl is a tier 6 here, and I just think that when I was looking at the tier 6, for one, we didn't have a ground immunity yet, which was really depressing because we got sniped on pretty much every ground immunity we wanted. But I just thought, okay, fine, ground immunity, extra defogger, okay. I mean, Noctowl's not particularly great at either of those things, but it kind of gets the job done. Because, like, even though it's base 50 defense, base 100 HP kind of mitigates that defense stat a little bit to give it decent natural bulk. But on the special side, it's actually really bulky. 100 HP, 96 for def. People sleep on this thing. It does get nasty plot. It has access to the ability Tinted Lens. I don't know, maybe behind screen somebody might catch a Noctowl sweep if I ever, grow the balls to run Hurricane on it. But otherwise, it's more just, obviously, it's just adding the 10th round pick. It's more of a niche Pokemon than anything, and I'm not super expecting this to show up to many games, and it might get dropped. Probably if there's anything that gets dropped in this team, it's probably Noctowl. But I think overall, I am quite satisfied with this team. Taking a look at the whole squad, if y'all want to see it, there's definitely more weaknesses than I would usually like on a type chart, but the micro synergies between the Mons I really enjoy here. The fact that I'm not looking over my shoulder half the time because of one Mon being the odd man out and such is kind of why I like this team. It's a lot more straight synergy between the Mons. This is not going to be everybody's favorite team, and I can acknowledge that. Like, it's definitely not on the same level as my BDL team, but although that was extremely cracked with the Megasis, Feeny, Victini, first 3 rounds core, I do think this team does a really good job overall. I feel like places we could get better if we could find it in free agency. Maybe a little bit more priority would be nice. I think all in all, I'm pretty satisfied, and hopefully we get on to the season quite well. I'm not expecting to see too many changes to the squad, but at the same time, this is quite different to what we've used in the past. This is a lot more direct offense, and even though this will be run mostly as bulky offense. I do think there's weeks I can probably just go straight hyper offense with this team, and I should be fine. Overall, though, thanks for watching, guys. I'm gonna be honest with y'all. I don't think I'm gonna be consistent with uploads in ISL. I signed up for ISL with a huge caveat that there's a real chance that I might drop because my IRL schedule is absolutely wild at the moment. And usually when I upload something like this, it's because I just want to. I like uploading. I like sitting alone and editing. It's usually my peace time. And I don't know if we're gonna get a video every week from ISL. I will try my best to keep on schedule, and I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't know if I'm gonna make it through the 9 weeks in ISL. I'm gonna do my best to, if I can, as my schedule permits. But I'm not probably gonna make those promises this early on. But that's gonna be it from me, guys. This is TRT77, and this is me signing off.